Hello, everybody. Welcome to SDEV 200, software development with Java. It's a good language to know. There's still a lot of advantages to it. There are some other languages gotten very, very popular because everything about them is to make it easier on the programmer. But in order to do that, we lose some power. One example that I had in mind I was going to pull up here before too long has to do this evening, has to do with when we read files and those easy to use languages. I think everybody is probably aware of which particular one I'm talking about. I see it on a t-shirt here in the classroom. In Python, everything about it is easy to use, easier for the programmer, but we lose some power. For example, file reading, I was going to point at that tonight. The best we can do is a file handler in Python. That's all we can do in Python. We can open a file, load the whole thing into RAM, and work with it. But one of the things I was going to point out tonight is strings, which our class is going to, when I was putting the schedule together, it looks like we're going to get all the way to streaming, which is a whole lot better than a file handler. We don't need the whole file. Let's open it up, send 100 bits at a time to RAM, and then work with them in small chunks, and that way we're not wasting all of our memory to do something. We get that kind of control back with Java. So that's still missing in the easy to use one. It's a great language to work with. One thing that's going to show up really, really quick is Java is for big things. From the very beginning, it's intended for big, big things. So there's a little bit of setup involved. And for things that fit in the time constraints of a classroom, it seems like a lot of setup because it doesn't matter if we're going to write 5 lines or 50,000 lines. It's that same amount of setup. So if we're writing something that's only 5 lines long, it's a lot of setup. But when we do that exact same setup to write something that's 50,000 lines long, it's well worth it. It's not bad. So that does always seem a little odd about Java in the classroom. I'm standing in the wrong spot. Let me move the camera to where I'm on here. I'm excited about this. Java is one of my favorite languages to program in. Some of that might be because I've just used Java more often than any other language. So that's the one that flows out. Usually when I'm working in another programming language and start typing in the wrong syntax, I start typing Java syntax. There are some real nice advantages to it. We get lots and lots of power. We'll talk about the language. Got some course policies to go over first. So the notes here, going to go over some course policies, all the bookkeeping stuff, at least a quick pass on those. Then our first example, and then we'll start talking about IDEs. Use a simple example in text editor to lead into IDEs and why we want that extra power for Java, because like I said, Java is for big things, which means we have we're going to have lots and lots of things to evolve in the project. So it's nice when the computer can help manage some of that. I know a couple people looked at Ivy Learn already. I put on there to go with NetBeans. That's made by Apache, which is a subsidiary of Oracle, subsidiary company. Apache is pretty much runs all of Java. You probably heard their name from servers, but they're rather large. They do lots of things. And Oracle tends to focus, their main company focuses more on the database. They hand a lot of the stuff about Java over to Apache. So they make NetBeans. It is the official IDE for Java. So we'll be using that. There are lots of different options. Usually at this level, this is the level where I like to recommend trying different things. IntelliJ makes a really, really, really nice IDE for working with Java. If you're not familiar with IntelliJ, all that predictive text stuff, it's called lexing from the lexicon of the language. IntelliJ is the one that pioneers that. They do. Other companies do it as well, but IntelliJ invented it and does most of the innovation still. So even if you were not working in an IntelliJ product directly, like the IntelliJ IDE, you're using their software in other places when you use predictive text and stuff. So their IDE is kind of nice, but it's not the official one. So I said, go with the official one for class. Then we'll take a quick look at a little virtual server, because the world's changing. Every day, more and more and more of the world is done on the cloud. Days of local machines are kind of in the past. And some of the classes that have been redeveloped recently for software development around Ivy Tech have already made that switch. The new one for the new course shell for Python, which I ran the first session of that over the summer. It is almost entirely web oriented. The only GUIs we even looked at were in Django. The only GUIs we even looked at in the Python course anymore, we don't even look at the TK interfaces. Write your interface in HTML, and then put some Django, put Python on the server. CLCD stuff, Docker, Flask, and it's all focused towards the cloud now. And I was like, well, we should probably start making that change in Java as well. We're stretched out over 16 weeks, so I'm not going to completely abandon the traditional main method for running on a program, especially for those who are transferring to another school. Academia moves slow, so you definitely want to see how the main method works and stuff. We'll probably still be using that in another class, but I want to make sure we're learning Java the way it's going to be used in the modern world, which is for big things on servers. Actually, I looked up the number. Java is the second most popular programming language for servers, coming in at a whopping 1.2% of the market. The web runs on PHP. If you all weren't familiar with that already, WordPress, Wix, and most of the other popular website making platforms all use PHP, and PHP has been the most popular for years and years and years. So over 90% of the web is using PHP on the server side scripting. But Java is used very, very heavily as well. 1.2% sounds small, but it's for big things. Enterprise system. Usually we're writing big things where we need absolute control over everything that happens. But we'll get into the language. First, we need to look at some things. Oh, yeah, I was reading these notes. So we're going to look at the little virtual server that is just installed and it's ready to go. I tested it on a PC, on a Mac, and on my Chromebook, and it was working fine on all of them. So any of your systems, I probably could have just said I tested on the Chromebook and worked fine on the Chromebook, and then the rest of them are going to follow suit, right? So whatever computer you're using, the instructions are there. If there is some platform-specific instructions, I'll try to make sure and include those. But Java is cross-platform, and it does so by bringing its own virtual machine. So Java just installs a virtual machine where it's going to run, and we run our Java on that virtual machine, separate from the other system, which gives us an extra layer of security. That's a big deal these days. And a few other advantages that we'll see. We'll look at the software we're going to use, a first example, and start getting into doing stuff, because this is an active subject. We learn by doing. But first, we got to go through the bookkeeping, the standard course policies. Those who have had me before will probably recognize all the strange due dates and stuff compared to some of your other courses, but make sure everybody knows how that goes in my course, when to turn things in, and all of that. So we'll start by looking at the syllabus. This is a 200 level course, so I assume it's nobody's first college course, right? There's almost always pre-regs, but is this anybody's first course at Ivy Tech?
It was my first semester.
First semester at Ivy Tech. Okay, so our learning management system, we do this customized version of Canvas. If you've been able to get on there and stuff. Okay, so ivylearn.ivytech.edu. Yeah, I like the software development courses where I could just say the URL, because we're programmers, we're used to typing things like that. Everybody else wants to know, where do I go to find the link to click on? I'm like, oh yeah. So all the normal logon stuff. they get logged in. Typical stuff for our modern world. We'll see that at some point. I'll just set that up on the thing because we don't want just anybody that sits down at the computer to have access to that software, right? We need a login screen. We'll see that at some point. And here's our class. I put the little traditional Java logo on there. All of that. We'll see the syllabus. And we'll just start here and kind of go through some things. So here's my contact information. The only two things that make noise on my phone during the semester are text messages and the Ivy Learn inbox. So there's lots of ways to get a hold of me, and I will get back with you as quickly as possible. But the fastest ways are just send me a text message, or over here, the Ivy Learn inbox, the official course communication channel, which if you haven't seen that yet, for those maybe starting Ivy Tech after out of school or something, it's customized email restricted to only our course. So we'll go in here and choose probably this one. Oh, that's game development. What's this one? There it is, software development. And from the drop down, you'll see there's you can only send emails to me, or is this not the right one? Oh, no, that's not it either. Which course is ours? Oh, the one that says Java. Should look further down the list. So you see it's restricted, so you can only send emails to me or the people in the course. That's the official communication channel. Lots of ways to get a hold of me, but for things that might seem important, like if people are keeping around, that's where the record keeping is. So if it's like official things, no matter how you get a hold of me, it's good. It can be good to repeat them in the Ivy Learn inbox, but that makes noise on my phone. So it's one of the two quick ways to get a hold of me. I have lots of office hours. Monday and Wednesday, the first 8 weeks, Monday and Wednesday, I'm there around lunchtime, and then again in the evening. And in between, I'm tutoring. The tutors moved to a new spot here on campus, out of the front corner of the library. When you can see from the interstate, there's those big glass windows. It looks almost like a greenhouse. The tutors are out there now. For my office, I have to leave my office and walk down a hallway to see a window. So I like to kind of go and I like helping people, but it's also nice to go spend a couple hours by the great big windows in the middle of the day. So I'm there in the office. If I'm not in another meeting, I try to log on to this Zoom call. I have a lot of meetings, and I also have some administrative hours. So like there's another hour after that. I should say till 6. 4:30 till 6 is listed as office hours. And then 6 to 7, I listed as administrative hours. But if I'm in my office, I'm in my office. I mean, if you have a question, I'll be in my office till 7 o'clock. It's just a little sign I put on the door has 6 to 7 labeled differently than 4:30 to 6. If I need to change that, that should be till 6. And then on Fridays, I'm here most of the day, like 5 hours, but it's labeled as administrative hours instead of office hours. So I just listed the office hours on here. I also do office hours on Sundays. And a lot more people do their homework on Sundays than any other day of the week. So Tuesday morning office hours aren't the most helpful time to be sitting there ready to answer questions. So from 4 to 5, I'm on a Zoom call. And you can reach out to me anytime. You don't have to wait till one of those hours. If you have a question, reach out to me. We'll get it addressed as soon as possible. These are the times I know I'm going to be sitting there. But on Sunday afternoons from 4 to 5, I'll just be sitting there at that Zoom call. So if you have questions on the day, most people are able to do their homework. I'm there as well. Lots of ways to get a hold of me. If you're not familiar with it, my office is in Ogle Hall 160. So from the lab 158, where we're at right now, I'm straight across the hall. So you like walk out the door and walk straight across, almost straight across. If you walk straight across, you run into the sign that has has my name right beside the door. So straight across from our lab here, in Ogle 160. But yeah, any way you can find me, get a hold of me, it works. There was a time a few semesters back where right before class, I was sitting out in the parking lot eating lunch and saw somebody take off running across the parking lot as quick as he could, jump in his car and rush out again quick. And just from seeing him, I kind of got the message that that's an emergency. So he had to run to the hospital. They let me know later, and it's like, yeah, I figured that. I figured it was very important. I saw you running through the parking lot like that. So anyway, you can get a hold of me, it's fine. So some other key points here. If you have trouble with Ivy Learn or My Ivy or any of the educational technology, these links here are the support staff for that. The subset of IT that deals specifically with that. So instead of going to the general IT department and having the help desk tickets routed around, you can go directly to the people that deal with Ivy Learn or My Ivy and all that. Disability support, there's accommodations if you need them. They're available. The one that gets most people is you move from high school into college. In high school, that's all automated. Like they keep records in the office and they'll keep track of that, do that for you every semester. But once you hit 18, that becomes private information. So the process is not automated like it is in high school. It's private, it's personal. They don't know about it. So you have to make the initial contact. After that, then it's fully automated and they'll take care of it because they're really awesome people. But you do have to reach out and make that make that initial contact with them because it's personal information, so they don't already know it about you, like happens with high schools and people under the age of 18. Y'all can read, you can see a lot of these. The Learning Commons is in the library is being remodeled into a big, nice learning system. At some point late in the fall semester, they're going to start a lot of remodeling work. They're going to put a coffee bar in there. Like right now, there's a Keurig sitting on a shelf, so it's free coffee and some comfy chairs and stuff. But they're going to fix stuff real nice, put in, remodel it and paint it, and they're going to put an actual coffee bar with multiple types of coffee machines instead of just one Keurig. Nice stuff. Comfortable place to sit. They're going to put another fireplace over there because people seem to like to gather around fireplaces and study. It's a comfortable place to study, and the tutors are over there, and I'll be in there tutoring. I believe Skip also has some tutoring hours, so there's help for IT, including this class in there. Skip's taught Java a couple times as well, so I know he can help with our class here if you need help. See, Ivy Life, the club stuff, there's a technology club, started kind of sprung up in the spring, and it has been taking off really well. Been doing lots of active things. They had a free movie today. It was kind of too soon to announce in a lot of classes. We hadn't even got to class, but they showed the movie Free Guy and gave free popcorn and promoted the School of IT. So things like that. But a lot of people have been joining us, Scrum Biggers, very, very active people. I think they regularly have D&D campaigns, so they like do the weekly meetings, which they said the meetings are going to be Wednesday afternoons. I don't know all the details about that, but if anybody's interested in the club, let me know, and I will have Tyler send you all the details on it, or sign you up for the club. Get a lot of things done. It's good to socialize. You're around other people. One big thing they've been doing, trying to bring back game jams. So like at the end of the semester, like last Friday in the semester or so, we'll reserve a classroom and hook into the AV equipment and just have a bunch of people playing video games and things to relax at the end of the semester. But club's doing all sorts of things. Some very active, energetic people there, and we're humans. We're a social species. Even if we're computer people and often like to be ourselves, it's still nice to be around other people sometimes. So keep the club in mind, and kind of some fun stuff, testing services that y'all can read that. At the obviously busy times, don't expect to walk into it and be okay, right? The week of finals, they're going to be book solid, so make sure you reserve appointments, but go read through some of that. career coaching, we have a great department here for helping people find work. As they approach graduation, the students resume together, and then even afterwards, they're still available. They just changed their name, and I lost the paper where I wrote down what the new name was, and they haven't changed on the sign in front of their office yet. But I was gonna have one of them come in and talk to the class at some point anyway. Well, if you're in this class, the reason we come to college is to get a good job and make good money, right? So that department is, we have a really, really great department to help with that here that even extends after graduation. So I'm gonna have one of them come in and talk at some point this semester. Yeah, as long as you know they're there, you can read through some of the things there. Right now, our dean is the dean from Bloomington is doing interim dean here for during the transition phase. So if there's anything that you feel needs escalated to my supervisor or whatever, there's his contact information. He's said he's gonna try to drive down every other week, so he'll he's a really nice guy, very nice, very friendly. So when he's driving down every other week, there's a potential you might need him at some point. Y'all heard a lot of this. This one I want to stop on. Ivy Cares, kind of like the name says, the care stuff, the food pantries. There's a counseling service because sometimes we get stressed out. School can be stressful, right? So there's a counselor on premise, and every Ivy Tech student gets some free counseling with heart-to-heart wellness, which I think is in Jeffersonville. But if we're getting stressed out, it's nice to have a counselor. Nice to have know what counseling is available. Y'all can check out their stuff. The one I like to click is right over here. So everybody needs help from time to time. And in our society, we know that we know the help's available, but getting it can be an ordeal, right? We're gonna have to spend for a whole day doing random Google searches to see what help's available and finding the application. Somebody put together a database that consolidated that part. So it's not the help directly, it's a database of the companies of the places that you can get the help. So you don't have to spend all day doing random Google searches, hoping something's there, or trying to track down the application so you can get the help. It's all consolidated. The place to find it is consolidated in one place. So you just go in here and enter your zip code. I'll enter Clarksville. I live in Clarksville, so that's the one that's always fresh on my mind. And this number's changed since the afternoon class. There was 2009 this afternoon. There are 2008 programs within whatever the default radius is, probably 10 miles of Clarksville. So a whole bunch of help programs, and you can look through here, see what's available. Help pay for gas. So a lot of people don't know this one's still around. If you were working in a restaurant before the pandemic shut everything down, those funds that covered gas money for all the people that were laid off because from the service industry have not been exhausted yet. So that gas money is still there if you're a former restaurant employee. I guess a lot of people didn't know that's still there. The medical, transportation, stuff like that. That person was still useful because a lot of people are in college or former restaurant employees still, and people might not know it's there. Other things, food pantry. There's a food pantry right here on campus, on Sellersburg campus, or some of y'all are from other places in the state. You will also have that link, and you can just check. It's a statewide program, so you can just check there in your local area, see what's there. I'm pretty sure every Ivy Tech campus has a food pantry. That's a very common need. All sorts of stuff. Money, help pay for childcare. A lot of people need that. Y'all can look through there, see what's there. But so it's not the direct link to the thing. It's one place to go search for the help. So you don't have to spend all day just randomly searching and hoping to find something. The school already hired a full-time person to just spend all day, every day, making sure there's only one spot people have to look to find that stuff. Because that can be such a headache sometimes. So textbook, for the class, introduction to Java programming, data structure, and data structure comprehensive version. I forgot to bring the paperback book. I have the previous edition. I have the 11th edition. It's like that thing. It's a big book. Comprehensive. And it covers a lot of stuff. But Daniel Lang has been kind of the premier author on Java textbooks for a couple decades running, since the early 2000s. So his books are very, very popular. We're up to the 12th edition. It's been going around for a while. It should be an Ivy Plus bookshelf. Can somebody confirm that for me? Because I see it, but that often happens. Like I can call the publisher and get free copies because I teach. Should be an ebook there, or if not, should be available.
It's there for me.
Okay.
I just pulled it up.
Okay. It's always nicer, yeah, because you can go buy a paper copy, but it's much nicer when we don't have to buy one. So there's the book for the class. That's some good stuff. Personally, I like textbooks. Things, an example I always like to use is making studying memorable. I didn't bring the book with me, but one thing like I'd be reading through the book and studying, get to a certain point, and I just stop and like drop the book across the room, or stand up off the couch, walk, and like sling it into the bathroom. And then on test day, I can have that extra memory to fall back on. Like, oh yeah, this is, see that question, like, oh yeah, this is where I went and tried to flush the textbook down the toilet. And the extra little stuff, yeah, don't drop kick your ebook across the room. That's very expensive. Or that'll get very expensive very quickly, but that's one of the big things I like about paper books that we can't do with like an expensive Kindle or something. But paper books don't have Control F. The index pages aren't links that take you right to the stuff. So there's definite advantages to both. And if that's in the course, if that's already in the course, you don't have to go spend money on a textbook. That's a huge advantage. So there's the full book version and the loose leaf version, which are the ones that are like printed out in the 3-ring binder. And I learned recently, a lot of people don't know the trick to that. It comes wrapped in cellophane. If you go with that option, make sure you put it in the binder before you take the cellophane off. Because then everything's sealed up and lined up and all the holes are in order. And the binder things will punch right through the holes. But once again, I'm walking down the halls this week. I saw people like rip open the cellophane and start struggling with all those loose pages. But stick those metal rings through the cellophane while everything's nice and tightly packed up, and then rip the cellophane off. And so a lot easier to get them in a binder. I didn't realize that at first. Somebody showed me that. It wasn't like I figured that out. It's like I was struggling with it, and somebody pointed it out. And I was like, oh, wow, that does seem like a much better way to do it. But that can be a little bit cheaper than the traditional books if you like paper. Course outline of records. Every course you have at Ivy Tech will have this. This is the official catalog entry. Probably saw it when you're issued for the class, the description, how many credit hours it is, and all that. The thing I like to point out is right down here, there will also be this list. So not just for our class, but in every class, you will have this list, major course learning objectives. Which is really like it sounds, stuff we're supposed to learn from the course. So come the end of the semester, and I always try to give a reminder about this near the end of the semester, in all your classes, make sure you go back and look at that list and feel like you got your money's worth. Make sure you feel like you learned everything on that list, especially for things that are prerequisites for another course. When you go to that other course, they're probably going to expect that you learned everything on that list. With that being said, there's an addendum to ours here. I've been trying to get this changed for a couple of years. I'm the vice chair of the software development committee statewide now, so I'm pretty sure I'll get it changed this fall. Number 3 here. Create applets for web applications. Applets were the client-side version. We transmit Java code over and a plugin in people's browser would run that Java code client side. Kind of like the JavaScript, if y'all have seen that. Java and JavaScript are not related. Java was very popular and JavaScript wanted to be popular, so they just kind of grabbed the name. Like, hey, that's a good name to use. And it's a nice language, so it worked out for them in the long run, but they are different things. That's an interpreted language, a whole bunch of different things. But applets would run client side. Yeah, marketing. It was good marketing. It took off. Their name's not even JavaScript anymore. It's ECMAScript. Like whenever they set the official standard, when they were trying to decide what language was going to be the official standard or client-side scripting languages, they knew what it was going to be called afterwards. And JavaScript was the one picked, but nobody used the new name. Right? That was 7 years ago, 8 years ago, and everybody still calls it JavaScript. So the marketing worked for them. But the client-side stuff. And the thing was, that was deprecated in 2017, at the end of 2017. December 2017, January 2018, they deprecated applets. And January of 2019, browsers quit supporting it. Academia moves slow sometimes. So we're definitely not going to cover that one. But otherwise, we're going to cover everything on this list. We're going to cover servlets. That's server side, that's really what we did with Java more often since about 2004, 2005. If we're doing any web things, we do it on the server and then just transmit the results so that it just quickly displays as text when it gets to the client machine. So we're going to look at that. But other than that one, we should cover everything on the list. So end of the semester, make sure you look at that. If you have any questions, those are questions to ask for all your classes, not just this one. General course policies. This is blended learn anywhere, maybe even to some extent virtual. I'm going to treat them all the same anymore. I really like this format where I'm here in the classroom. There's a couple people joining me here in the classroom. Some of you on the Zoom call. I like this format. That came out nicely. It's nice for the face-to-face interaction. It's very convenient on the Zoom call. I know at least one person I heard from a couple weeks ago. You're up in Indy, I think, around Indianapolis, and the class wasn't running up in Indianapolis. So it's very convenient for that reason too. That way you don't have to drive all the way to Sellersburg. So from now on, pretty much all my classes are probably going to be this format. The only variance will be on some of the virtual ones. I may stay home and teach from home instead of being on campus, but having that multiple options. So if you want to join me in the classroom, I'll be here every Tuesday and Thursday, 6 o'clock, which means driving up here at rush hour, because I have a virtual class that I am teaching from home right before this. So make sure you check your messages right before class. And if you don't see me, I'm probably stuck in traffic between Clarksville and here, because it can get a little heavy at times when everybody's leaving downtown at the same time. And I just don't understand that at all. I don't understand why everybody needs to go to work and come home at the same time. Especially if we're all everybody's sitting in offices or factories with no windows or anything. Under electric light, you can't tell what time of day it is. There's no need for everybody to be on that same schedule and cause all the traffic jams and stuff. But I will have to drive. My afternoon class will end, and then I'll drive up here during rush hour. So if I'm ever running a little bit late, I'm probably just stuck in traffic. But it's only a 10-minute drive, less than a 10-minute drive when it's clear. So I should be here well before 6 every time. Y'all can read through some of their stuff. For those who haven't had me before, due dates are different in my class. You probably used to most of your classes, everything's due at 11:59 p.m. on Sunday, right? And it's like that consistently. The first thing is that is not good practice for the real world. That is not how the real world works. works. We don't always have the same deadline and everything, right? We need to keep up on those. So I like to vary it up a little. And another thing, I remember being in classes and trying to ask questions about homework and getting told things like, well, you can ask in class on Monday. But getting told that in a class where the homework's due as soon as class starts on Monday and there's no late submissions, it's like, but if I ask in class, then I can't finish the homework. Or the homework won't be finished when I turn it in, or I won't be able to turn it in late. That always bothered me tremendously. So there will always be a chance to ask questions on homework questions in my class. So this is a Tuesday, Thursday class. We'll start each new module on Tuesday. There's 8 modules and 16-week class. So basically each module is 2 weeks long. So if anybody started looking ahead and noticed that that first week, there's like 5 chapters of reading. Those are the intro chapters. So that's, I should really say 5 chapters of skimming, because that's like that review stuff that you saw in the SDEV 120 class, the SDEV 140 class, those basic concepts. So skim through those, and but it might seem like a lot, but we're covering 2 weeks per module. So it's spread out over a couple weeks. As long as you don't wait for the last minute to do it, it shouldn't be that much. It shouldn't be that overwhelming. But if you're used to looking at least for 1 week per module, that might seem like a lot. But so there's a chance to ask questions. Homework will be due on Tuesdays at 11:59. So like we'll start today, module 1 today. They'll cover next week, and then the following Tuesday is when the module 1 homework will be due. And at 6 o'clock, we'll start into module 2, but you can, there's a great chance to ask any questions about the module 1 homework before the due date on it. So I always try to make sure that's there. It also kind of works out nicely because I just point out most of your classes, everything's due at 11:59 p.m. on Sunday. I'm kind of a realist. We're humans. That means we're all going to do our homework on Sunday night, right? So if the last minute in my class is different than the rest of them, then it spreads it out, right? You don't have as much to do on Sunday night there at the last minute, or it's a different last minute, so it's kind of spread out. So automatic grade deduction, 3% per day. The computer's tracking it. So if that clock hits 12 o'clock instead of 11:59, the computer's going to apply that deduction. So keep up on that. Try to have your stuff turned in well in advance. This is a 16-week class, so should stretch out, have plenty of time to work on things. Most things will be accepted late. Assignments, any homework assignments, things related on the final project, a lot of stuff will be accepted all the way to the end of the semester. There's a 3% grade deduction every day that it's late, down to 50%. So there is a stopping point. It's 50%, that's an F, and an F's an F. So even if I'm manually grading by hand, like if I'm going through your assignment, I usually read the code, run it, read the code again, then run it, and then I start making comments. So for those who haven't had me before, you might have a perfect score on it, but you'll see like 3 paragraphs written just for comments. I tend to write a lot. But if I start marking out points, I do stop when it gets down to that. Like I'll start marking things off and it's bad. If it gets bad, I just stop grading when it hits an F, because an F's an F, and a high F is still a lot easier to recover from. So I do stop. The automatic grade deduction stops at a certain point, and if I'm grading, I just do that. But until we run out of the time at the end of the semester, I am much more concerned with correct and quick. So if something like that happened, you wouldn't just see the grade pop up in the grade book. You'd see an email come in and be like, yeah, here's a list of things. Can you fix this and resubmit that before I grade it? Because I think this is a very valuable skill in our modern world. I want to make sure you all develop the skill well and turn into good programmers. So until we run out of time at the end of the semester, I'm far more concerned with correct and quick. And if things aren't looking so well, I'm liable to I'm much more likely to ask for a resubmission than even put a C on an assignment. I know time gets overwhelming, so sometimes you might not have time to, and be like, yeah, I'll take the bad grade on this one. I need to move on. I'm overwhelmed right now. I understand that. Life gets that way sometimes. But couple nice notes there, and I can't think of a good segue to the next section. Not all assignments are accepted late. So setup assignments can only be done that week. So module one, obviously we have a few setup assignments. The IDE we're using, the virtual server, those will need to be set up, and obviously those are gonna have to be set up no matter what, but you can't turn them in and get points for them if they're late. But hopefully everybody's excited to get started doing stuff with them, so that won't be a problem at all. Discussion boards the same way. Those were supposed to take the place when things started moving online, virtual. Discussion boards were kind of was hoping they would take the place of the around class stuff. Like in the traditional setting, everybody comes to campus, walks down the hall at the same time, goes in the classroom, sits down, takes a break at the same time, leaves at the same time, walks down the hall back to the parking lot. And when you're walking down the hall with your classmates, the topic of conversation and you have in common is that class. So that's probably going to show up in the conversations walking back to the parking lot. And that stuff does contribute to education and the gaining and development of knowledge. So we don't want to completely lose it when we go virtual, because obviously that's not part of the virtual environment. We don't walk down the hallway with other people, just start talking about whatever thing we can think of to avoid awkward silence. That doesn't happen in virtual environments. So discussion boards were kind of meant to take the place of that. They became small writing assignments. I turned them off. I might turn some of them back on for topics. We might not have to worry about that. I just hit the policy and thought it was there. If I turn any of them back on, it's like a conversation, right? Show up at a party and your friend's like, oh, we just had the greatest conversation. You can't bring it back up, right? If your friends just had the greatest conversation, you missed it. And a discussion, I treat discussion boards the same way. Quizzes you can turn in late, but only for a week. There are 7 days. And remember, I just said, we're doing 2 weeks per module. So it's not the next module date on the quiz. It's still 7 days on a quiz. So halfway to the next module, if you're late on a quiz. Quizzes are open book, untimed. You can take them unlimited number of times. Midterm and final pull from the same question bank as quizzes. So even if you get a perfect score, it might not be a terrible idea to go, if you got time, go click through a few more questions, see what they are. That way when we get to the final, you'll have seen most of the questions. But there's a lot of questions in the question bank. No time limit, open book, and just keep track of the due date. And if you miss the due date, it's only 7 days on those. Obviously, the course, nothing can be turned in after the course ends. I don't waver on that at all. I'm an early morning person, so course ends 11:59 p.m. on that Sunday. I'll wake up the next morning. That's the exception to the Tuesday deadline. Class ends on a Sunday, so that's when everything has to be due for the final week. I'll wake up Monday morning and do any final grading and submit it, and I'm usually done with that by like 7 o'clock. I'm old, I wake up early. So usually by the time people, by reasonable hours on Monday morning, I will have already submitted the grades. Eastern time, just in case anybody that signed up from this class from elsewhere in the state, if you're in one of the northwest or southwest corners, all the times are Eastern time. General makeup policy, y'all already do that. Drop and withdrawal dates. If you're not familiar with the difference, a drop is like you never took the class. That's for like when class names change and you're looking through the catalog, registering, see the description, like, oh, that sounds really interesting. Sign up for the class and you get there and then realize that you already took the class, they just changed the name on it, so you didn't realize it. You can drop it, it doesn't show up on your transcript, you get all your money back, and it's like you never registered for it. You only have a couple days to do that. And that also happens to be the last day you can get 100% of the tuition back. After that date, and up until the withdrawal date of November 20th, the percentage of tuition that you get back if you don't finish the class gets smaller and smaller and smaller. On November 20th, that's the first day that there's no refund left from. A withdrawal on the other hand that's more of a long-term thing. When you start taking a class, you know, like halfway through it, 3/4 of the way through it, but life happens, right? Sometimes we get overwhelmed, things happen, we're not gonna be able to finish the course. So to avoid having an F on your transcript, you can withdraw from the course. If it's a W on your transcript, which I believe gets replaced when you come back and do actually pass the course later. But it's just like unable to finish sort of thing. And if it's after November 20th, you have to have special permissions from chancellors and get like 10 signatures on a piece of paper and talk to a whole bunch of people and explain why. But otherwise, that's the difference between drop and withdrawal. Keep an ID, keep an eye on those dates. If hopefully nothing like that's going to happen though. Hopefully neither one's going to come up. Y'all can read a lot of the details here. Etiquette, everybody here is an adult. You know, how to treat each other socially, civilly, respectfully, all the proper stuff. If there's any high school students in the class, I don't ever look at that list when they send it to me. If your high school students getting a jump on their college courses, I'm going to consider you an adult because you're in an adult situation. So please behave like an adult, all that normal stuff. The next section I left the default in says get back to you within 36 hours. I'm one of those people who checks my emails 20 times a day. So if you don't hear from me in 3 to 4 hours, something bad might have happened. I'm usually pretty quick, even if it's just to let you know I'm looking into it. It might be a couple hours. I'll try to say something very quickly. And again, text messages and the Ivy Learn inbox are the only two things that make noise on my phone during the semester. There's too many notifications in our modern world. You gotta turn those off. Those phones will just never stop beeping if you let it. Fisher channel, you can read a lot of that. Types of assignments. So programming assignments, it's an active subject we learn by doing. So that's how we're going to spend most of the semester is actively doing things. But there's some background concepts, some understanding we need to work on. So there's also the reading assignments and the multiple choice quizzes. And when we go to get good jobs, we want to see certifications and stuff like that. And certification exams are long, multiple choice quizzes. We don't get certified in Java by writing Java code. We have to sit down and take a multiple choice question about it. So have that other stuff in there. It's a big project for the semester. You'll spend quite a bit of time working on that. It's a 16-week class. I think it's introduced in module 3 is where you make your proposal for it. Figure out what you want to make and then spend the semester putting it together. Something big and interesting catches your interest. Quizzes, there's a midterm and a final. Both of them have 2 parts, like a multiple choice question part and then a small programming part. And the multiple choice part is pulling from the same question bank as the weekly quizzes. So even if you get a perfect score on the first pass, might not hurt if time allows to go run through it again. It's going to keep your best score to see some of the other questions just because the midterm and final pull from the same thing. There's a lot more questions in those banks than are showing up on any of the quizzes or that section in the final. Breakdown. So there's of course policies in the syllabus. I can read through it if you have any questions. After you read through it, let me know. Does anybody have any questions about that so far before we move on? Okay, so looking, I guess moving on into our content. So in general, the recommended order to go through things is the modules tab. This will be set up in all your courses. Courses have all moved to 8 modules, and a lot more of them are, we're still in one of the 16-week courses, 8 modules, 16 weeks, so we're gonna do 2 weeks per module. Most of your classes, you might get from, notice, 1 week per module, but that's not locked in. Sometimes the introduction week is just read the syllabus and do a scavenger hunt or something. And so there'll only be 2 or 3 days for module 1, and then you jump into module 2, and then there's extra time to study the actual time. It doesn't have to be 1-to-1, but most people do just because it makes more sense to do it that way. But we'll be doing about 2 weeks per module. Some people like to look right at assignments. If you're one of those people, you just want to, you don't want to go to modules, you want to go right to assignments. You'll notice here on my page, things are categorized. The default look is as the code assignments, discussion boards, which all of them are turned off right now, just small writing assignments. We can talk in class. Oh, speaking of talking in classes, since we're little kids, since we're little kids, they drill it into our head, raise your hand, wait patiently to be called on. And that just doesn't work on a Zoom call, right? If you have a question, unmute and interrupt it. Somebody recently said there's no such thing as an interruption on a Zoom call. I completely agree. If you have a question, just unmute and interrupt me immediately, because that's the only thing that works. I'll try to keep an eye on the chat room and the little, but I might not see something pop up in the chat room or the little yellow hand icons if you have a question. So just, if you have a question, just go ahead and ask it. Everything's categorized nicely here. But if I jump over to student view, if you all go to the assignment tab, you see this. It's not even organized in any way. Q, P, G, Q. It's not alphabetical order. 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I guess it kind of goes in the module order. The dates are all over the place. The 13th, December 18th, September 6th. They're just listed out there. There doesn't seem to be much of an order to them or anything. This right over here, it doesn't even look like a button. Look at this. So the people in the classroom can see what I'm pointing at. Over here where it says show by type, it doesn't even look like a button. The cursor doesn't do anything, but that is a button. So if you click that, then you'll get the categorized version of the assignments. The recommended method is to go through modules, because that's yeah, and in categorized, when it's categorized, it's probably in somewhat of a better order to look at. You might still have to look at the dates and stuff. But again, go through modules is the best way. There's also the calendar. A lot of people like this option. You can go over to the calendar. Is this one turned on? Oh, great. Oh, our stuff's not digital. Got 2 weeks. So in September, yeah, so you'll see the stuff there, and after you turn in an assignment, it'll cross it off automatically. And calendars are standardized in our world, so right over here is the calendar view button. Just click that, and then the thumbnail's on this computer anyway. Okay. Then there's the link that you'll copy and paste into your Google Calendar or iCal or Outlook, whatever calendar you normally use. Or you can copy their link over to this one if you want. And then have it send you all your regular calendar notifications. Set it to remind you about homework assignments 72 hours in advance and things like that. The calendars are standardized, so just hit that calendar feed button and you can get it right in your calendar. And the normal calendar customizations, choose the color it is, and mute some of the things. Some people like that option. Different ways to get to the assignments, but nobody's in their first semester, so I assume everybody kind of knows that, or is at least somewhat familiar with that. I like to point it out just to be sure, though. We all do things a little bit different. So recommended order is modules. I guess we're gonna take a break here in a few minutes. Our general format for class is we're scheduled 6 to 8:50, so 3 hours. But this is an active subject. We learn by doing. Okay? So whenever I'm doing this, there'll be some concept stuff, pictures on the board, try to help understand it, see the difference between them. And, draw pictures of different types of tables so we can compare them, the difference between a jump table and a hash table, and compare those rough pictures, get some of the concepts down. But mostly I go through examples, just type the code, so definitely a follow along thing. I try to go slow, try to go somewhat slowly, but I do drink a Mountain Dew right before every class. So if I clearly have too much caffeine, feel free to be like, you slow down a little or go back over stuff and just follow along the example and see what, and that's how we learn to code, right? Or writing lots of code. And I usually I also try to teach more than I grade you on. So following along the example will get you all the graded stuff, plus other stuff that I think will be just useful to know, but would be too much to fit in there. But it's an active subject, we learn by doing. So we'll go through our class lecture, which is mostly going to be example based, writing some code, doing stuff, and then we'll have lab time. We can call it lab time, where we'll go ahead and end the Zoom call, and the lecture will end, but hopefully that time is blocked off on your schedule already. So it's a great time to sit and do stuff. I will just be sitting by my computer waiting for questions to come my way, or sitting here in the classroom. For those who like to come to campus, I'll just sitting here. So I will be sitting here until 8:50 every night, but our lecture is probably going to end a lot earlier, so you can start actively doing stuff and practicing these skills, because we learn by doing in software development after the lecture part. So there'll be plenty of that. And in general, things should be spelled out here, the reading, programming assignments, to getting set up for class. I'll start here. It's coming on break time, and then we'll look at the software we're going to use after break. Actually, we'll do our first example just in a text editor and compile it old-fashioned way. See how that works, and kind of motivate the reasons we want to use an IDE with a nice project manager. I was just thinking use Ant in class, but Maven and Gradle are quite popular. I wouldn't have any trouble if you wanted to use those, but I was going to use Ant for class because, well, there's one thing that's automated in the others that's not in Ant, and that's when we need to include a new module. Well, we can automate it, but I was going to do the not automated version, so y'all see how to do that. Right? That seems like an important thing in a class. Like, along with the automated version, let's at least go through the steps. We'll see that when we do the MySQL stuff, when we access a MySQL database, which we'll need a MySQL database. And that's what the server is. And in our modern world, every day, more and more stuff moves to the cloud. In the break between the summer and fall semester, I went ahead and went over to Google Cloud Platform, GCP, and was looking into that. I know most of your class, if you saw any cloud stuff in class, it's probably AWS. Google uses the same standards as AWS. Standards might not be the right word because it's not written down, hard coded as an ISO standard somewhere, but that's how we do things. But the Linux servers, Google Cloud does things the exact same way as AWS and Azure. So all the big three are doing things. So if you're familiar with AWS, it's just a matter of looking through the Google Cloud thing to see where the buttons are, and the labels that are changed are obvious. So like in AWS, there's the Lambda functions for the small things you can run. And on GCP, they call it cloud functions. And then obvious little changes there, like Google knows a lot more languages than Amazon. I think your choices on Amazon cloud Lambda functions on AWS are Python and JS Node. There might be a third one on there, but Google, you have to actually scroll through a bunch. Java is one of the options there. There's a lot more language options available on there. I think the style sheet's easier on the eyes, but everybody gets $300 to try Google Cloud. To learn, you just go log in with your regular Google account and you just search for Google Cloud Platform. Probably Google Cloud's enough, yeah. Google Cloud Platform, everybody gets $300 to try stuff over 90 days. Let me log on to mine real quick. So since I'm talking about it. So I've been doing this since I have been clicking around like crazy since August 11th, I think. And I've gone through $9. I've tried a lot of stuff and I'm only down to, and I still have $291 in credits. That's not really sure. The thumbnails are in the way again. So the people in the room can see it. Maybe I'll put it there. So that $300 is stretch out of ways. And there's a lot of things there, but everybody, you automatically get $300 to try it. And you have stuff that look familiar, just the stir up some servers or all that stuff if you've seen the cloud. But every day, more and more of the world moves that direction. So I wanted to make sure that at least a significant chunk of our class was getting you all prepared for that. Because you're probably not going to write the traditional desktop apps, right? You're going to write, when you're in an application, you're going to either stick it on the cloud somewhere and people are going to access it through a browser. So we want to look at it that way. So JAMP is a virtual stack. The X stands for cross-platform. So there's also MAMP, WAMP, and LAMP for Windows, Mac, Linux, your specific system, or the cross-platform version. And AMP is sort of the standard full stack. Apache, MySQL, PHP, and Perl, but really anymore that second piece, Python, for the small scripts, small CGI scripts. And JAMP also comes with Tomcat, which is for running Java. So we could also throw another letter on there. There's actually several more letters we could throw on there. I will start with that, and then we'll look at the IDEs after the break. So, might as well look at this first. So you'll install it, follow the link there, and it should put it on your C drive. And unlike most of your software that goes into program files and program files x86, we put software there because there's no write access. So your user can't change those files. Once it's in those folders, it can't be changed. There's no write access. But obviously on a server, we need write access. So it should be on a thing down here. If it's not, if it did get put in there, there was an issue. Somebody made an installer about 6 or 7 years ago, and they, I guess, just out of habit, threw it in program files x86, which is a problem on a virtual server. They fixed it quickly, but it's something people still remember years later, because that's kind of a problem on a virtual server. So if you're somewhere else, just move it, put the folder somewhere you can find it. There's Apache configuration files. It's Apache 1, so the big thing you're going to look for is when you go in there, you'll see this folder called htdocs. And anything you put in this folder, this is your website. So when you access it, the stuff in this folder is where you'll basically go to see things. I'm going to do a good example. So we have a control panel where we started. The control panel doesn't work on a Chromebook. So if you're on a Chromebook, you do have to go in and do it the terminal way, but I wrote that out in the instructions in case anybody's using a Chromebook. Everything we're doing in this class, I did test on every system. So no matter what kind of machine you're using, it should be good. Most everything we're going to do is cross-platform. with obvious differences, right? Like if I'm on my PC here and do something in the C drive and you're on a Linux system, you're probably already well aware there's no C drive on a Linux system, right? Till we get to WSL. I don't know if y'all have, oops, clicked the wrong button. Has anybody started using WSL yet? I'll probably talk about this some, so let me, Windows X, and then I open the Windows terminal. New Windows terminal is really, really nice too. But I have it already shortcutted on mine, so if I push Control-Shift-1, I now have a Windows, Kali Linux, and Ubuntu running on the same system. And I can do stuff. So let's ping, I don't know, ivylearn.ivtech.edu. So I ping that from Ubuntu is going to keep pinging it. It has that thing turned off. So while that's doing that, I'll come over here and change directories and the Windows system. And maybe I'll show it here. So if I list out the mounted drives, there's my C drive. I already had it synced to Google Drive, so there's my Google Drive. I'll list out, oh, and then the Windows subsystem for Linux. I'll list that out with instances. There's the Kali system and the Ubuntu system. So virtual machines are built into Windows now by default. To turn that on, you put WSL install, and that'll put an Ubuntu system on yours. We'll talk about that later. There's a better way to do that because it's a very stripped down basic Ubuntu version, and you probably want the latest best version of that running. But virtual Linux machines are built into Windows now, and it is a really, really, really nice thing to have. But I'd already planned on using this one beforehand. We might come back to that some this semester because as developers, if you're doing everything on the cloud, you probably want to have familiarity with that, right? Probably want to know how to set that up. You don't want to use this one to just install and it's ready to go. Install and we have the start button here. Because you're gonna be the one that configures the server to run your software. So we can get practice with that, but we'll see that later this semester. And we'll go through the long way to install WSL. So make sure, because it's a really, really useful thing, just have Linux on there. So we can start our Apache server, start our MySQL server, and Tomcat is the server that's going to, that knows we are in Java. So you probably also want to start those. And somewhere there's an enable button. I haven't clicked it in a while, but you can't just automatically enable them so that every time you start it, those are running. NetBeans will start Tomcat for you, so we'll see that here before too long. You don't necessarily have to worry about that. But once those are running, then you just open a browser and your normal loopback 127.0.0.1. And here it goes to this index page, and over here where went into the folders, that's this index page right here that we're looking at. So let me add a new one real quick. Let's see, new folder, call it in class, and I'll just add a new text file, new text document. Oh, wait. I need a new one anyway. Start up a new one. I need something with it that's HTML, and save this as index.html. There we go. Since we're going to be doing stuff on servers, has everybody seen HTML? You had the SD153 class. I see head nods in here. I know a couple of you all you took that class with me in the spring. If you haven't had it, don't worry. There's when we get to NetBeans, there's a drag and drop, like you're probably used to seeing for GUIs, but you drag it over and it drops the code in. It's a really nice thing. I really, really like that on there. NetBeans, and we can customize that. So we can write our own drag and drop code, and then we just drag it over and it drops the boilerplate code in for us. Makes the website stuff a lot easier if people haven't seen it. But if you've seen it, then you know how to make really nice looking interfaces with that, and we'll have Java run. So here, this is just a quick index to show you what's going on there. So in the htdocs folder, I put this other folder. So when I go to 127.0.0.1 or the word localhost, and then add in that in class folder. So there's that one we just made. So your regular HTML for the Apache stuff, regular web pages, just go in that htdocs folder. And Tomcat's even easier. NetBeans will link to Tomcat. So if we run it from, oh, I don't know why I just typed that. Well, I do. Every time I do a server, I just put it to the word Tomcat because that's a lot easier. We have to go through port 8080. So Tomcat's on port 8080. Which when you put your SSL, just as the, so you can go HTTPS instead of HTTP, and that way people don't get a warning message when they go to it. The port number will be absorbed into SSL. I actually set something up here, so https://https:// if you haven't seen it before, :/ means protocol. You're probably used to typing that, but that does explicitly mean protocol. And we're going to type several different protocols this semester. So if at any point in class examples I say, use this protocol, make sure you type : / and then CS Francis. So this one, you can see it's on the secure site. I just do this up as a quick check, which I'm gonna have to click a couple times here because this is on the smallest possible instance of Google platform machine. I think it was less than 1 gig of RAM, like 900 RAM. So if it's static HTML, it delivers that fine, but I've got other things going too. So I will, I was testing how far that goes, like pushing the limits for it. So it may go a little slower, but that's coming from Java. But instead of entering port 8080, once that certificate's on there, I move that over to Tomcat. I'm pushing the limits of the server. So there's the Tomcat thing. So you notice that entering the port number gets absorbed into the SSL. So, well, for one thing, if you do Apache and Tomcat on the same one, that means you'll have 2 index pages. You have 2 servers running on the same address. So I might have to reload things a couple times, but we have this nice little management page for it. NetBeans will link directly to it. Actually, most of our IDEs will automatically spin up Tomcat for us. But when you're ready to go, that's what I was saying. I don't know my password on that one. Let me go back to that page I was just on. Oh, that's not the page I was just on. I wasn't expecting that to ask for a password. Was I looking at the wrong page? Yeah, I don't know what my password is, but I do know what the password is on the one on the server, which is and yeah, I was deliberately seeing how far I could push that server, as you saw. I think I found the limit, but it works fine for delivering pages. There we go. Sign it. Eventually. Okay, I'm gonna do this a different way. Let me close out of there. Is Ubuntu running? Well, I'll point to the button in a minute. There's one single button. It's probably coming on time for a break. And for some reason, I don't, you guys computer don't seem to want to pull up that button. I'll pull it up on the Ubuntu because I have an Apache Ubuntu server running on that WSL thing as well, but y'all are probably ready for a break. So we'll look at that right after a break. But there's one button that says deploy. So we click the build button in our IDE and it puts together with a WAR file. The Java equivalent of an executable file, which if you aren't familiar with it, the exe file they're used to running, that is actually a zip folder. That's just a zip folder full of stuff the computer knows what to do with it, but a human wouldn't have a clue what to do with it. The Java equivalent is a jar file, JAR, and for the web, they have the WAR file, W instead of a J at the beginning. And to deploy on Tomcat, there's one button that says deploy and you just upload it and it's that easy. So really easy to use. That's why I chose Tomcat. There's some other alternatives that take a little more configuration, but after you go, probably ready to get started doing stuff. We'll look at that button afterwards, but there's an Apache there. Oh, I guess we can look at one other button. So if I go back to localhost, PHP my admin. So it also has this very popular PHP my admin server. Do I have more than one thing running? Oh, that's why it was. Okay, I just realized why it was asking for a password. Jamp should not have been asking for a password. So I think I started Ubuntu a moment ago. So localhost went to my Ubuntu system, not to the Jamp system. That's why I couldn't pull that up. So I do know what the password is, but we'll look at that quickly after a break. So when we do database stuff, PHP my admin is a very popular graphical interface for dealing with MySQL database. But if anybody's taking your MySQL class, database class, you know there's a lot of stuff. So these interfaces tend to get very, very cluttered very, very quickly. Here's the button to create a new database, give it a name, click create, and you can enter your SQL statements here, or there's places to click and drag your mouse around and do all that, but MySQL can do a lot. So the interfaces to control MySQL are just a cluttered mess of buttons all over the place. But, that'll be there on Jamp as well. Start both of those. Oh, Tomcat's not running. Yeah, it had to have been on my Ubuntu server. So you'll just start them up here. There's also server-side FileZilla if you want to practice FTP. So instead of just copying and pasting on your normal system, you can practice and make sure everything goes across FTP properly as well. Mercury is a email server. You can set that up. A great practice environment. Virtual machines are great for that because if something goes wrong, you just delete it and install a new one. So we'll be using that and we'll kind of look at that shortly, but it's probably a good time for a break, right? I know I'm getting very thirsty. Does 10 minutes sound good to everybody? I see head nods here in class. 10 minutes sound good to y'all on Zoom call? All right, so my laptop says 7:21, so we'll get back to it at 7:31. I'm gonna go grab a drink. Wonder if I have time to make coffee. I think coffee maker might have just enough time to make a cup and drink. Take a sip of it. So probably go get water. So I'll see y'all in a few minutes. And we'll get our first example. We'll go ahead and build our first Java example and see how the compiler works in the terminal in minutes.